I think
Yeah,
Karen,
I have a question.
Karen does
as well.
too. Go, Karen.
So for those of us who are lucky enough, I guess, to have lived, a fair amount of time with our brain tumor friends. So I worked for 7 years afterwards. I did have, after treatment, a baseline neurocognitive test. And then I had another one before I stopped working.
Mhm.
And this is a two-part question. Do you have any, is there any advantage to seeing the same, I guess, provider to do the test if you're going to have it again? Or is it, to see somebody else? And one of the reasons I'm asking is I'm fighting with my, so I was on my disability for 2 years and now they've declined me again. So we're waiting to see with the appeal. But if I were to have a third one, I'm just curious if there, I know it's just a personal opinion, but I'm curious.
Yeah, no, that's a totally fair question. The advantage of seeing the same provider, I think, is that well, two things. If you had a good experience with that person and you trust their conclusions and you trust that they're communicating effectively with your treatment team, then I think that's a big advantage. That would be a good reason to follow up with the same person. The other thing I could say is that there's our reports are typically pretty long and pretty thorough, but there's always something that there's always a sort of a personal touch that might not translate to another provider. So seeing the same person may have sort of a different a different impact that person now, because they have seen you in the past, kind of has a little bit more context. That being said, from a pure like data processing and sort of case conceptualization perspective, I would say that as long as the reports are thorough and comprehensive and contain all of the relevant data to make comparisons from time point A to time point B to time point C, then that's probably the most important thing, as far as if you were not able to see the same person, or if you wanted to see a different person. Yeah, that's probably that would be the metric that I would use. And then, was there a second question that you had, or did I answer both?
Squeezed both in. Thank you.
Oh, perfect. Okay. And then Jerry,
you basically use the same tests. I mean, from one provider to another.
More or less. So there are, there's a lot of tests that have been developed by neuropsychologists over the years, and there are a lot of tests that are used by the majority of neuropsychologists. And so, in all likelihood, the neuropsychologist who does a lot of tests and generates a report, and eventually at some point sends that report to neuropsychologist B, chances are neuropsychologist B will also have those same tests and can look at that report and say, oh, we can just do a straight comparison. That's great.
Okay.
Yeah, but if not, or if there's some like some more rarely used tests, or tests that, I haven't gotten around to ordering that one yet, or whatever the case is, then there's always multiple ways that we can assess the same cognitive function, even though that way we might not be able to make a direct statistical comparison, but we can still compare performance from one time point to the next.